And our poll question, McLovin, give me an update before I bring in Tony Dungy from Football Night in America.
Which was worse, Spygate or the Saints bounties? 52% Saints bounties.
All right, let's bring in Tony Dungy. Let me start there, Tony. Spygate or the bounties with the Saints? Which worse?
I guess we haven't heard the whole story on the Saints, but it may come out that this may be worse because I think, you feel like you're actually talking about something physical with guys' health. That is definitely an issue.
Let me go back to the Redskins game because we've talked about it a lot privately with the Redskins and Peyton Manning's injury, and you knew that something was up. So much so that Peyton said to his backup, Jim Sorgi, get ready to go in, which never happens. But Greg Williams is the defensive coordinator for the Redskins. At any point, did you think the Redskins were trying to do something more than just play football with Peyton Manning?
No, not at the time when we're on the field, not in the years even afterwards. It never even occurred to me. But then you start, putting two and two together with all this stuff, and then seeing Philip Daniels' comments, and this is what we had going on. It does make you think.
Do you think that the Redskins had a bounty out for Peyton that day?
Well, just listening to their guys talk, it does sound like it. When you see Matt Bowen's comments and Daniel's comments, and this is what we had done. It makes you think that.
But that hit, was it a dirty hit to Peyton?
I don't think so. I think it was a penalty. Should have been a penalty, and I said it at the time. But I wouldn't have said, hey, this is something intentional. But again, you can't read into people's actions on the field. You never know. But that's where this thing is so dangerous when you get that being talked about, that, oh, yeah, for big hits or for knocking guys out or for taking a star player out of the game, we would do A, B, and C or get paid. That's what puts the doubt in people's mind, and that's why it's so dangerous.
What kind of punishment do you think should be handed out? Let me start with Greg Williams, who's now with the Rams. And what kind of punishment do you think the commissioner will hand out?
Well, again, I think it really comes down to how long was this going on, how many places did it happen, was he really involved in part of it? And to me, it's totally different if you're funding it, as opposed to a guy that, hey, I knew this was going on and I didn't stop it. That's one thing. But if you're taking part in it and actually, putting up some of the money, to me, that's a whole different category.
Yeah, I think they're going to sit him down for games. I don't know if you fine him, but Sean Payton's role, he's the head coach. What do you think happens to him?
Again, a lot of times things can happen. You're not totally aware of everything that's going on. But again, as a head coach, we all kind of were made aware of that this is something that can't be happening on your team. And if you know that it's happening and you don't put a stop to it, you are liable.
And I think I think that this went all the way to the top. That Tom Benson knew what was going on. Mickey Loomis was told to stop it. Sean Payton, was involved in it, and I think the Saints benefited. I think the way they played against the Vikings and certainly Brett Favre helped them go to the Super Bowl.
Well, that was their style, and there's a difference between being aggressive and playing football and trying to be physical and trying to hit people and trying to knock people out of the game, and there's a difference between that and trying to hurt people.
Well, I thought McCray's hit on Favre at the time, he went low. And I thought that it was dirty. Now, I didn't know anything about the bounties, but to me, that seemed like, by whatever means, when Kurt Warner got blindsided by the Saints after throwing a pick, then it just seemed like there's something else there when you start to go back.
That's the problem, and I think that's why the NFL has to eliminate this, because now you do go back and look at all these things, and you say, boy, was there something there? What was really going on here? Was this just a hit, a one-shot deal, or is there something going on? And that kind of doubt, that's not what the league needs.
He's Tony Dungy from Football Night in America joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Peter King said 10% chance that Peyton could still come back to the Colts. I've said all along that he's not coming back. Now as we get closer to that deadline for Thursday, what do you think happens?
Well, I think there is a chance. I know that they're talking and trying to figure out the way to go. I hope it happens. I hope he does end up back with the Colts. I think that's where he should finish his career. I'm probably going to kind of agree with Peter and say that there's a 10% chance, and I hope as we get closer to March 8th it works out that that's what happens.
But you got the Dolphins, you got the Reds. I mean, there's going to be teams that are waiting. But what do you think would be the perfect fit for Peyton?
Well, I don't know if there is a perfect fit, and that's part of the problem. If you don't go back home where you know everything and you know what the situation is, you could go and is it Kurt Warner in New York with the Giants, or is it Kurt Warner in Arizona going to the Super Bowl? Is it Brett Favre in New York, not having a great experience, or Brett Favre in Minnesota? Mm-hmm. And you always have that unknown, and it's kind of a roll of the dice. And that's why I think it's better going back. If you are Peyton and you want to play, you're better going back into a known situation.
Yeah, but he's not going to win there, and he's got to win championships. I think that's all that's left for him. It's not just playing. I think it's playing at a high level, and he's not going to be able to do that with that roster.
Well, I mean, we say he's not going to be able to win. You didn't think San Francisco was going to be able to win this year with pretty much the same roster. So I wouldn't say that it can't happen. Theoretically, can they win a Super Bowl? Maybe not, but I don't know that they were a worse team than San Francisco, last year. Now, we'll see what happens, but, and I have talked to Peyton a little bit, and I said, don't go into it that way that, hey, we can't win here, or this team can win and this team can't. You have to do what's best for you.
When did you talk to him?
I've talked to him just once in the last couple of weeks, but I know he's battling with this.
But battling to just play, or battling to stay, or battling to go elsewhere?
Well, number one, when I talk to him, I think he really wants to play. That's the biggest thing, and I think he'd prefer to play there. I really do, but we'll see what happens.
Is he ready to play?
That I don't know. That's going to be, medical and doctors and everything else. And but in his mind, he'll be ready to play in the fall when they open up, no question.
But if he is going to be out there on the open market, he's going to affect the draft more than anybody, because these teams are going to look at Robert Griffin III or Tannehill and say, all right, who are we taking? Wait a minute, do we go for Peyton Manning? Like the Redskins or the Dolphins, they need quarterbacks. If you were going after Robert Griffin III or somebody else, or you're going to go for Peyton Manning? Well,
I don't think there's any question about it, Dan, that March the 8th, this Thursday, is going to impact several teams. It is going to impact the draft. This will be the biggest kind of decision-making process in the whole draft, no question.
And I look at the Browns. I don't know if the Browns are going to pay enough to get Robert Griffin III. It seems like the Redskins will, but if I'm the Browns, I know you got holes to fill, but I certainly like to have a guy that I know I don't have to worry about for the next 10 years with Robert Griffin III.
Well, you look at what Cam Newton did for Carolina, and Carolina had a lot of pieces in place, especially on offense. But all of a sudden, he comes in, and they become a very dynamic offense because of what he brings to the table, and he makes everybody else better. And I definitely think Robert Griffin can do the same thing. Andrew Luck's going to do the same thing. You have a chance to get guys like that. It's worth quite a bit. You've seen just in the past few years, if you're right on the guys, Peyton Manning brought a lot to the table in Indianapolis, and Eli Manning has brought a lot to the table in New York, and they gave up a lot, to get Eli, but they've won 2 Super Bowls now. When
you were with the Steelers, did you guys have bounties?
No, we didn't, and there's always that, players getting together and throwing money in the table. Hey, the first interception, or kickoff tackle inside the 20. We're throwing some money in the pot, and that happens. And I guess it's an IRS violation and salary cap violation. But I don't think that's what people are concerned about. But I never. None of the teams I was involved with for knocking guys out of the game or injuring guys. I never heard of that.
Good to visit with you, Tony. Thanks for joining us.
All right, Dan. Thanks.
Tony Dungy, Football Night in America.